Hello, everyone. I'm Natasha Fatah, and you're watching CBC News Network. And we begin with a stunning development in France. The polls are now closed in one of the country's most pivotal national elections in decades. And despite the initial predictions that put the far right in the lead, the initial exit polls right now indicate that the far left coalition appears to have won the most seats in parliament.
Bonjour, messieurs, dames. On vient vous voir après. On va voter, on arrive.
You can see French President Emmanuel Macron in that shot. He's the one that called these early elections after major gains by far-right parties in recent voting for the European Parliament. Voter turnout for the second round of voting in France has been high. Exit polling projects that Macron's centrist alliance is in second place. The far right, led by Marine Le Pen, is in third after sweeping the first round of voting. But none of them have a majority, and a hung parliament will throw the country into a political deadlock just weeks before the start of the Paris Olympics. Now, we are all surprised by these results, and we're going to dive in a little bit deeper with our next guest. Randall Hansen is a professor of political science at the University of Toronto, and he's joining us today from Paris. Professor Hansen, thank you so much for jumping on the call at the last minute.
You're welcome. I had to dash through the streets of Paris to do so, but I'm very glad to be here.
Well, I imagine that's no easy feat because the images we're looking at, hundreds and hundreds of people are out in the streets right now. So let me ask you the most important question, I think, and we're showing some of these images this hour of the countless people that are out. We're hearing, according to exit polling, that the new Popular Front will get the most amount of seats in the new legislative assembly. Who is the new Popular Front and what do they represent?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but we should also add that the National Rally came not second, but third. So
Absolutely.
Came last in this. So this is an absolutely extraordinary, brilliant result. The new Popular Front is a coalition of all the various left-wing parties, or there's a couple that are not out, but most notably the Socialists and France Unbound agreed to work together, and that is to say the kind of center-left and the far left. And within days of Macron's stunning and frankly appalling announcement, the left was able to unite, present a single party for the French to vote for. And the name Popular Front, of course, recalls the Popular Front of the 1930s, the last time that France faced a threat of fascism.
You mentioned Marine Le Pen and the national rally. How did this happen? Because a week ago, the conversations we were all having were, look how successful the far right is going to sweep these elections. Up until 2 hours ago, that was the conversation taking place. It's this exit polling that's putting us all on a different track now. Where did things go wrong for Marine Le Pen?
No, you're right. I was in a French restaurant on the terrace, ready to order 7 or 8 whiskeys when the results came in at 8 o'clock. And in fact, I ordered champagne. Yes, this was unexpected. 3 things happened, 2 for sure. The one we've mentioned already, all the left-wing parties united in a common front, a Republican front, as they called it here. And the second thing that happened is that where you had 3 candidates, I mean, France has a majority system, so anyone who gets 12.5% on the first ballot can go to the second ballot. And where there were 3 parties, Macron's party, the left grouping, and the National Rally, the Liberal Democratic, the Republican, and the French Sense-Living parties, the one in the weaker position stood down. So in 220 constituencies, and recall there's 577 about in France, 577 seats in France, in Philly 220, one of those 2 candidates, Macron's party or the far left, stood down, creating a 2-way race between the far right and the left-wing grouping or Macron's party. And I think a third thing that happened, and this is getting into psychology, so this is just a hypothesis, is that enough people who voted for the National Rally in the first ballot, when they went into the second, thought, this is really it. This is about the Republic. We could have Vichy again. Hundreds of thousands of binationals might be stripped of their citizenship. Immigrants might be rounded up and deported. Our relationship with Germany will sour. This could be the end of the European Union. And they said no.
Let me talk to you about Emmanuel Macron for a second. I was going to ask you about the logic of the decision to call this election, particularly when the right were doing so well in the European parliamentary elections. You described the decision just a few moments ago as appalling. Talk to us about what was Macron's logic here. What was he thinking?
Yeah, when the far right was doing so well. So I think there were three things going on. The one was pure egoism and petulance. I mean, he didn't even consult his prime minister in making this move. The second, let's move on to the more tactical ones, is he didn't think, I believe, that the left would be able to unite with such short notice, and that there would be the far right, a divided left, and that he could squeak through the middle. He also, I think, was partly hoping that people facing the shock of the far right would come to their senses, which may have happened a bit. And I said three. There's actually a fourth factor, and this is Macron at his Machiavellian worst. I think a small part of him wanted the national rally the far right to become the government, so frankly they could mess it up over the next 3 years, and then that would prevent Marine Le Pen from becoming president. But when you play with the fascists, as the Germans and the world learned very much the hard way in 1933. Remember that there were only 3 or 4 National Socialists in the original cabinet when Hitler was appointed chancellor. When you play with a fascist, you are playing with fire. So that was a very dangerous strategy indeed.
We are over time, but I must ask you this final question, which is what happens next for each of the 3 parties and their leaders? Macron's office has already said they're waiting for the final results. They want to respect the process. But does he stay on? Does Le Pen stay on? And who becomes the next prime minister and president?
Well, this in fact seemed much easier than we thought a little while ago. I don't see how Macron could not offer the new Popular Front the opportunity to produce a prime minister. I think this has scared the hell out of everyone in France. And so I think you'll see a much more cooperative arrangement between the center-left and Mélenchon. The far left has said they won't be out. So between the center-left and Macron's party, the danger, I know we're out of time, the danger in this situation for the next 3 years is that wherever you have a grand coalition, as you've had in Germany or the Netherlands, everyone's in the middle. That tends to strengthen the far right. So they will absolutely have to use Prime Minister Sunak's favorite term from the UK. They will have to deliver for the French people, heal the divide, do something about the alienation of the country, rebuild public services. And if all of that is done in the next 3 years, we can avoid the worst.
Okay, Professor Randall Hansen joining us from Paris. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
My pleasure.